Welcome back to Deconstructing DJG. I am DJG, and today we are going to talk about me. So normally I react to conservative, fundamentalist Christian content and people, but today, in honor of Pride Month, I want to talk a little bit about my journey from being the fundamentalist homeschooled missionary kid to the decidedly queer, polyamorous, non-binary individual that I am today. So to start things off, let's talk about where I came from. My parents were still in college when they had me, so then Dad goes on to seminary, and then they go to missionary training. They became missionaries with Baptist Missions with a goal to be church planters in New Zealand. Church planting is where you go somewhere, you start a church, you then train locals to become the pastor, the deacons, etc., have them take over, and then you move somewhere else, start a new church, rinse and repeat. We got stuck, though, in the fundraising phase called deputation. Normally, you'll do this for like a year or two, but we did it for like 8 years. I've talked to missionary kids more recently, and they are flabbergasted that our mission board allowed us to keep doing that for as long as we did. They said that their mission boards would have absolutely told my parents, look, I don't think God is calling you in this direction. I think you need to seek out other ministry opportunities, but you're not going to be a missionary with us. My childhood up to junior high was basically travel to a church Sunday morning. Usually we'd go on Saturday, stay the night at a parishioner's house and do the Sunday thing, Sunday morning, have a potluck and all that good jazz at the church afterwards, potentially drive to a second church nearby, do the same thing at the evening service, and then stay at someone's house again, drive home on Monday. And then, it's kind of a toss-up. We would sometimes do a third trip to a different church on a Wednesday night, but sometimes we were just in our home church. Awanas was on Thursdays, so I actually got to do Awanas consistently. I was obsessed because the main thing with Awanas is you have to memorize scripture. I don't memorize things very well. I have to work really, really hard at it. And boy howdy, did I work hard at memorizing all those verses. I'm pretty sure that at one point in my life, I had memorized at least a third of the Bible. I actually won an Excellence Award, which is kind of an advanced award beyond just a little like jewels in your little crown that you wear on your little vest and everything. It was more of a grown-up kind of award for preteens and teens that were doing extra Bible verse memorization. So I was all in because we were traveling around so much. I would have missed so much school if I was in any kind of public or private school. So we homeschooled, and when we got to third grade, we were living in Iowa, and they required that somebody did a test with me every single week to make sure that I was keeping up with the public school kids. However, my textbooks didn't always handle things in the exact same order as the textbooks that the public school kids did. My mom would give me like a crash course on Thursday about what I was going to test on Friday, and then I would take the test, and that started my test anxiety. I did not have test anxiety before that. At least I don't remember having test anxiety before that, but that was the worst. I got a D for the first time in my life on math, of course. And so we put me into public school for a semester. Now, in a way, this was one of the coolest things that I had ever done because I actually got to hang out with kids my age every single day, pretty much. I had lots and lots of friends, and it was a really good time. However, I also learned what gay was. I had heard gay a little bit from family and churches and whatnot. And of course, the messaging was always very bad. So it was the 80s, height of the AIDS pandemic. And so I learned what gay was and was like, yeah, okay, that feels like me. And I don't like it. I'm in this picture and I don't like it. Because all you were told was, they were child abusers, they were, degenerates, they did drugs, and they died young of AIDS. And that's not what I wanted for my life. I didn't want to be this terrible, awful, very bad, no good person that was this evil thing. That was not at all what I wanted in my life. And so I started praying, God, please fix me, make me straight, make me at least okay with pretending to be straight, something. But as we all know, as you get towards puberty and go through puberty, those natural inclinations only get stronger. So I kept praying. And by the time I was 13, I had gotten a hold of some alcohol and was not drinking responsibly. I'll just put it that way. But it was not good. But after a few months, the school year started back up. This was over a summer. School year starts back up, and I am doing track and cross country, and the alcohol was seriously messing with my race times. So after a couple of weeks, I was like, okay, can't do that anymore, because the racing and theater and my music lessons, that was everything to me. So I was very, very motivated to stay clear of alcohol at that point. And still there was the occasional church lock-in or, sleepover or whatever where there might be a little bit of alcohol, but it wasn't the problem that it was during the summer when I was 13. But I continued to get more and more anxious about the fact that this gayness in me was not going anywhere. And I would occasionally be like, oh, you know what? I've got a crush on that guy, so not gay, right? And then I learned about bisexual. And I was like, oh, okay, still gay. Yeah. So then when I was, let's see, my first car accident was when I was 11. And I was riding home from my paper route on my bike, and a lady failed to yield, threw me off of my bike, multiple spinal fractures, concussion, whiplash, all that good jazz. And then I was in and out of physical therapy throughout high school, for either my back or I was just clumsy. So, screwing my knee up or tearing my Achilles tendon or whatever I was doing. And yeah, so I also had pain meds. So then on a very dark night of the soul that I had when I was either 16 or 17, I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm checking out. And I attempted to OD on pain meds. Now, thankfully, I didn't just do a giant handful all at once. So after taking a few, I kind of lost the gumption, I guess, and was like, no, can't do this. And so, I was fine. I didn't have to be taken to the hospital or anything, but nobody knew. And I was intent on keeping it that way. So then I get to close to graduation, and the Boulder is something that I had always done with my cross-country team, but because I had graduated, I wasn't going with the cross-country team anymore because, we weren't in cross-country anymore. I went up by myself. A friend was supposed to go with me, But she ended up canceling at the last minute, and so I was like, fuck it, I've already paid for the hotel and the race entry and all of that good jazz, so I'm gonna go. I ended up having car trouble the night before the race and was assaulted by a guy who stopped to help me on the side of the road. And I mean, he did help me get to a payphone, and pre-cell phone, get to a payphone and be able to, call a tow truck, get it over to a shop and all that good jazz just down the street from my hotel. But then when we got to my hotel, he didn't want to go away. So I didn't sleep that night. I did not sleep one little bit. I was exceedingly upset, as one does after being assaulted. So then the next morning, I walked down to the shop because I'm not going to be able to make it to the race because I got to get the car worked on. So I get there and I get the car worked on. And I'm like, I just want to go home. I am so done. Just take me home. And I recognized that I was very out of it and was like falling asleep at the wheel, and I've got to drive through the mountains. Not a good combo. So every 15 minutes or so, I would pull over on the side of the road, get out of the car, walk around for a bit, get back in the car, drive for a little bit, get out of the car, walk around, just trying to keep myself awake. But that did not help that much. I did end up falling asleep at the wheel. I came to and I was about to plow into a rock face. So I swerved to miss that. The car skidded on a bunch of gravel that was on the road. So I turned into the steer, but because I'm 18 years old, I overcorrect and spin around and then went backwards down a ravine. So more, trauma to my head and spine and all that good jazz. So again, given lots of pain meds. I didn't use most of them though because I didn't like how they made me feel, so I just kind of toughed it out. But I hung on to the meds in case I needed them in the future because they gave me 90 of them. Because this is back in the 90s when doctors were throwing opioids at people like it was candy. So yeah, I had lots of them, hung on to them. Then several months later, my freshman year of college, my dad almost died and a number of other things were happening and I was ready to check out again. So I tried doing the same thing that I did the first time. This time though, I was definitely more committed to it. But as I was in the process of doing it, a friend stopped by to see if I wanted to go to chapel with them. The school required that we went to services somewhere 3 times a week, plus chapel 5 times a week every morning. I was ready to check out, so I wasn't going to go. But they came by and asked if I wanted to go with them. And at the time, I was like, this is God, stepping in and saving me and sending people to me at the right time. So again, managed to get through that without any super serious issues. Part of what was causing the problem though was the fact that I was still gay to a certain extent, and the conservative Christian college that I was at would kick you out for being gay. They would only allow you to stay, possibly, if you consented to doing conversion therapy. I did not want to do that. I didn't want anybody to know because if it got back to my family, I was pretty sure that they weren't going to allow me to stick around. I was going to be disowned, I was going to be kicked out, I was going to be shunned, however you want to phrase it. And I was terrified of losing contact with my younger siblings who were still minors at the time. I didn't want to lose that at all. I had been raised to believe that your family of origin is everything. They're the only people who will truly love you and truly understand you and truly appreciate you. You know, you can hope to find that in a spouse in the future, but generally speaking, it's only your family of origin that is going to be able to give you the love and reassurance and support that you would need for life. I transferred out of that school after my freshman year. There was so much that I was still steeped in, and I was just like, you know what, screw this. I'm not going to come out, but I'm also not going to remain at the school. That's not happening. I transferred out, went to what I realized after I got there was a state school that was a party school. And I had so much fun there. I made friends with so many LGBTQ people, and it started to change my perspective on what it is to be gay and what kinds of people are gay and what are their values and what kinds of things do they do in life. And the more that I saw real gay people, I was like, this is not what they told me being gay was when I was a kid. This is nothing at all like that. So what the fuck? And it was my junior year then, when I finally started to come out to people. I told a group of my guy friends back in my home city, I think I might be gay, guys. Actually, I said I think I might be bisexual. Because I was still, attracted to guys every so often. And I was like, hey guys, I think I'm a little bit gay. So then I kept it still very, very hush-hush around anyone that might report back to my family. Again, still had minor siblings that I wanted to remain in contact with, and I was pretty sure if I came out as gay at that point, I wasn't going to get to keep that. So then I get out of college. I have my third and final car accident. More spinal fractures, more head trauma, more whiplash, and all that good jazz. So once again, on heavy painkillers, but yeah, I didn't do anything stupid with them. That's this time. I was like, you know what? I don't like how these make me feel. I'm just going to tough it out with lower level painkillers. I don't need these. So that was a positive improvement. I also had things to live for at that point. I had a wonderful boyfriend. I had a lot of good friends, and I had plans and goals for my future that weren't within the very narrow box of what my family said was okay for me to have as goals and dreams and whatnot. I was kind of 1 foot out, 1 foot in the church at that point. I was pretty sure I didn't want to be, at least not that kind of Christian anymore. I didn't know really where I sat on all of it. But I also had so much else going on that I didn't really think much about it. My boyfriend, who then became my husband about 1.5 years later, he was vehemently atheist, despite being raised in a Lutheran family. He was staunchly liberal atheist, and so I was like, I'm just gonna do that for now. So stopped going to church. Didn't really tell my family that I had stopped going to church. Whenever I would visit them, I would most of the time go to church with them just to keep up appearances and whatnot. But yeah, I was separating myself. I like to think of it as my Rumspringa. So I was not making any like dedications to any faith or lack thereof. At that point, I was just kind of testing the waters. So then I am getting into the rave scene and the mountain camping parties scene and stuff. I had a favorite bar that I would go to at least a few times a week. A lot of really good DJs came through there, and it was a good time. And so I was just focused on just being me and not really worrying about religion. But after a few years, I was like, I can't in my gut have the same I don't believe in anything, or I don't believe that anything supernatural exists. It's like, that's not me. That's very much not me. And I didn't know at that point how much of it was just the indoctrination that was so very steeped in me, or if it was truly like I did not believe in a God. At least I didn't believe in the Christian God that I had been raised with. What I have felt are interactions with the divine. I don't feel like those are the Christian God that I was raised with. It felt like a very different God. The things that I learned about the world after getting out of college and moving out onto my own, it didn't jive with what I had been told growing up. And I was like, okay, what do I do with this? So I was like any good nerd, and I read things. This was before YouTube got big. I don't know if YouTube did exist. I'm going to have to look that up, but it was very close to when YouTube was just starting. So there wasn't a whole lot of like video essay content. It was very much I had to read books. I had to read articles. I had to read ebooks, It was a good thing that I had always been a bookworm growing up, because every single homeschooler, they are often bookworms, because that's the one thing that we really get access to without our parents interfering. So read all of these different things. I read up on Christianity and different flavors of Christianity. I looked into pagan spiritualism, Judaism, Buddhism, a whole bunch of different things, just to try and see what other people are saying about deity, and to look at what resonated for me, what felt true based on my personal experiences with what I felt was the divine. And I ended up landing on Judaism, and I was like, this is really close. Wicca and Druidry also very, very felt very, very true. But at the time, I was like, Judaism is at least a established, organized religion, and I am familiar with a lot of the themes and a lot of the characters and whatnot. I feel like I understand it a little bit more, and it feels a little more firm than a solitary spiritual practice. So I dove into that. I started listening to rabbis, and at this point there was YouTube and other video essay content. So I was watching rabbis speak. I was reading the Rambam. I was getting into all of that. My ex-husband did not appreciate that, and he was vehemently opposed to me pursuing that. And I was like, well, too bad. This is what rings true for me. I don't expect you to participate in this with me. I just expect you to respect me enough to allow me to make my own decisions about this. And he really struggled with that. It's a big part of why he's my ex-husband. So then I get a little bit older. I've been practicing Judaism for several years at this point, and I was like, let's do the thing. Let's make this official. I was so taken aback at all of the misinformation that I had gotten about Judaism growing up. Because what I thought I was going to find in Judaism was absolutely not what I found in Judaism. It was exceedingly different, and it's way too much to get into here. But suffice it to say, part of the reason why it rang true was because it was so different from what expectations I had established as a kid. So I reach out to a couple of rabbis to look for someone to officially sponsor my conversion. The conversion process takes at least a year, and you have to pay for classes, and you have to read a bunch of specified books and whatnot. And it's unfortunately a significant financial thing. Which when I initially started the process, I was at a really good paying job, and I was like, awesome, we can do this. Let's go. And so I started buying up books that the rabbi that I was working with suggested, and I reached out to an official conversion. I don't know what to call it. Like, it's a like adult learning program for people who want to convert to Judaism. So you have a specific track of courses that you take over the course of a year. And pre-pandemic, that was typically done in person. It was typically done at your local synagogue in small groups, led by a specific rabbi. But post-pandemic, they were like, no, we can do this remote. And that means that we can have rabbis hop on and do just pieces of it. So you would get to hear from numerous rabbis through your whole process and get kind of a more well-rounded idea versus just what the one rabbi thought. And it reduced the workload on the rabbis because they are very, very busy people. So I was like, great, let's go. But then shortly after getting accepted into the conversion program, I lost my job. And the job market freaking blows, as anybody who has had a job hunt in the last few years knows. So I was struggling to find a job, and I was like, let's not make the financial commitment until I have an actual job, because that's the responsible thing to do. I was like, I can continue practicing. My rabbi has zero issues with me continuing to, participate. I just don't call myself Jewish. I say I am Jew-ish. Then October 7th happened. And I knew that this might be an issue. One of my big concerns with organized religion is the way that it is weaponized by politics. And it's really hard to get away from that, especially with the Abrahamic traditions. And with all of the Jewish content creators and stuff that I had followed, they all were just lockstep with Netanyahu, and I can't do that. I can't do that. I am very free Palestine. I have been that way for most of my adult life. That long precedes October 7th. But it made it really hard for me to connect with Jewish rituals and practices without having the politics and the war and the genocide clouding the brain. And you just it's hard to worship when you have that on your mind. And so I was like, I need some sort of spiritual practice. So I picked back up with more of my, Wicca druidry type thing. Even while we're studying Judaism and working on converting to Judaism, I've hung on to bits and pieces of that because it feels true. And I have gotten to a point to where I define what is important to me. It doesn't have to fall neatly within just one tradition. I am customizing my own gender identity, gender expression. I am customizing my own relationship structures. I customize everything in my life to fit me. It was harder to continue doing that as I watched a greater and greater genocide happening. So I was leaning more heavily on the pagan spirituality, which isn't a bad thing. It has allowed me to continue to meditate, to pray, to put my intentions out into the universe. And it is, there's still community in that, just not necessarily every single Saturday. I have pagan friends, and so I've had people to practice with. But through all of that discovery, it's been a matter of, how do I describe it? It's been somewhat clarifying to once again realize that an organized religion, a tradition stemming from organized religion, gets into territory that really makes me uncomfortable, and not in like a challenging you to grow kind of way, but in an ick kind of way. And so I have a feeling this is going to be a long-term thing for me to figure out just how much I can continue to participate in the Jewish community. Nothing against most Jewish people, because most Jewish people don't like Netanyahu. But, the loud ones really, really do. So we'll see how that goes. But like I said, I've been customizing everything. In my first marriage was polyamorous, married to a guy, dated women, got divorced, then married a woman, didn't date anybody else while I was with her until like the last year or so, and I had like a friends with benefits kind of situation on the side with a guy. Very, very short-lived. It wasn't great. So then I get out of that second divorce, and I was like, we're gonna be single for a while. And it's been a really growing period for me to not have a romantic partner and to be able to just focus on who I am, what I need, and how I'm going to get to my goals. A lot of that has been trauma recovery. Lots of EMDR, lots of books like The Body Keeps the Score. And I gotta say, during the pandemic, I had been in therapy for like 7 or 8 years at that point. And I felt like I kind of stalled out. I really wasn't making any more progress. My issues weren't getting any better. I was still dependent on my anxiety medication. It wasn't a good time. And my parents were like, I don't think therapy is working out for you. I think you should come back to the church and talk to a pastor. And I'm pretty sure I said something fairly non-committal and not rude, but the immediate thought in my head was, fuck you and fuck no. I then started talking to my therapist a little bit more about my childhood and about how I grew up and things that had happened as I was getting older, and she was like, giving support and reassurance that these burgeoning feelings and like uncovering stuff and realizing that, this thing that I'm dealing with now started when I was very, very young. And the more things that I found like that, the more I was like, my upbringing did mess me up a little bit more than I remember. And I started unpacking a lot of the doctrines that influenced how I talked about myself. The cognitions that I had about myself. What were the ideas that I had about me and who I am as a person, and good versus bad and all this stuff. So then we started doing trauma recovery, and almost immediately I start making major progress. And after several months, I am off of my anxiety meds. I'm able to reduce the dose on some of my other psych meds. We added Prazosin, which is a PTSD med, stops night terrors and stuff. And I finally started sleeping through the night for the first time I could ever remember. All my life, as a little kid, as a teenager, young adult, middle-aged, could not sleep. I went through so many different sleep meds, and I would sometimes have panic attacks as I was trying to fall asleep. And once we got me on the Prazosin, and my body was like, oh, we can sleep now and there's no night terrors. Awesome. I was actually able to sleep through the night. Best thing ever. So then I started looking back at more stuff, and when I had gotten divorced the first time, I had told my parents that I was bisexual and polyamorous. And they actually asked me at that time, are you trans? And I was like, no, I'm just bisexual. It's fine. I'm a woman. Totally. And at the time I thought I was. It didn't click for a while. But then I get married, or I've been dating this woman long term. Gay marriage was still not legal, so I couldn't marry her. But we'd been dating for a while, and my parents realized that this wasn't a phase. I was gay. So then they disowned me. My dad called me as I was packing up to leave for a month on a business trip, and told me that, I was an unrepentant homosexual, and they had to, give me tough love, and I was dead to the family. I was banned from my sister's wedding, all this stuff. And then I had started therapy shortly before I came out to them, because I wanted a therapist to help me game plan how I was going to talk to them about it and deal with potential fallout, prepare myself for potential fallout, which was good, because about 9 months, after I came out was when they decided to drop the bomb on me and kick me out of the family. It was about a year, and I was in therapy, and I was like, look, I need to be able to forgive them. I need to be able to let this go if they come back. I need to not be stuck in anger on this. I need to process through this. And so we did that for the year. We focused entirely on that. And after about a year, there was a death in the family that spurred my mom to reach out to me and reconcile. Now, it was my dad who said all the awful things to begin with, and then it was my mom who apologized for him. It was a few years later before he actually directly apologized for it. They were like, things were said that shouldn't have been said, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, so we can reconcile. I've been waiting for this. I forgive you, but I have one rule. Do not proselytize me. Do not try to bring me back to the church. Do not try to get me to talk to a pastor about things. Do not proselytize me. I am not interested in your brand of Christianity. I don't believe most of the things that you raised me with, doctrine-wise, Values-wise, I'm still very much the same. But doctrine-wise, no, I'm not having that. I'm an adult. You're going to respect my beliefs. I'm not going to push you to go to P-Flag or anything. And you're not going to push me to go to church. Fair? Fair. Problem was, they didn't adhere to that. I continued to not send them articles or suggest they go to P-Flag meetings or anything at all like that. Sent them nothing. But they had zero compunction to send me a bunch of verses that explain why Judaism is wrong and Christianity is right and why being gay is wrong. And it's like, why can you not respect the one frickin' rule that I had about all of this? That's all I asked, was to not proselytize. But being former missionaries, they just can't help themselves, I guess. So every year we would go through this where they would cross the boundary, and so I would kind of withdraw for a bit to detach from the ick that they sent me, and to try to, regulate myself and be able to talk to them again. But this happened a couple times a year for the better part of a decade. And finally, during the pandemic, they were like, you really should talk to a pastor, because I don't think psychotherapy or psychiatry is helping you at all. After the pandemic, end of 2021, I had a dog that I had had for like 15 plus years. She was absolutely my soulmate. That dog is the only reason why I survived my 20s and 30s. She was my everything, my absolute everything. And I lost her to kidney disease right before she turned 16. And during the last couple months of her life, I had gotten a second and a third opinion as far as whether or not I should help her cross the Rainbow Bridge. We're all in agreement that, she didn't have a quality of life anymore. In those several weeks, her function had just gone off a cliff. It was so fast. But then there were the meds and there were the tests and everything. So I had spent close to $1,000 in those last several weeks of her life. So I had not been paying my car payment and things like that. After she passed, I asked my mom and dad for some financial help to recover. And my mom thought it was the right time to tell me, once again, that I was in this position because of my lifestyle choices, and that I really needed to come back to the church. I got off the phone with her as fast as I could and dissolved into sobs for a couple days. That destroyed me, because it was both hurtful because Zuzu was my soulmate, so of course I spent money to try and make sure that I was making the decision for her end of life care. And my mom had the audacity to not just tell me that that was a bad financial decision in her mind, but to blame it on my lifestyle choices, which they've never defined exactly what they mean by lifestyle choices. But being conservative, fundamentalist Christians, it usually means a specific thing, and they had never clarified to say exactly what life choices it was. Choosing end-of-life care, that's not a lifestyle. So I don't think it had anything to do with that. Like, it only makes sense that she was talking about, I'm queer and I'm polyamorous and stuff like that, which had fuck all to do with the situation. I was single and celibate at the time. I was focusing on my career. I was focusing on self-improvement. I was focusing on giving my elderly dog the best final months or years of her life. Though that was my lifestyle. And yet my mom thought that was the time to bang on about me not fitting into their very narrow box of what I was supposed to be as an adult. And on top of that, just the utter cruelty behind the proselytizing. Not only was she proselytizing to me, but it was through utter cruelty. I cannot think of a nicer way to put that. I was devastated. And already, and then she like double devastated me, because I was like, okay, cool. So my parents truly do not care about me as a person. They care about me being the person that they want me to be and to have the public persona that they want me to have. And I had so much rage. And I spent a few weeks like calming down, getting my thoughts in order, and I sent them a very long email talking about how the different religious practices that I had, the lifestyle that I had, the ways that it benefited me in the way that white, straight, cis, Christian conservatives, benefited them. And I was like, look, your beliefs are your beliefs, and I'm going to let you keep your beliefs. But I need you to let me keep my beliefs as well. We can just have this as not a topic that we talk about. And a couple of months passes, and I was like, man, did they even get my email? Are they going to say anything? But after a couple months, I did get an email back from them that basically said, we are saddened but not surprised to hear this from you, and we're never going to stop praying for you to come back to the faith you were raised with. There was a lot more to it, but that's the skinny. I was, again, devastated because obviously they had ignored everything that I had said. They were still intent that they were right, I was wrong, and nothing was going to be settled until I agreed with them. And that's not how respectful adult relationships work. It's just not. If they saw that something in my life was causing me harm, they could have said specifically, like, hey, this thing that you're doing is causing this harm, and so you should do something about it because I don't want to see you continue to cause yourself harm in this specific way. But they could never give feedback like that. It was just, I'm not the person they want me to be. And unfortunately, that's just how raising kids goes. Often the kids are not going to be exactly what you want them to be. If you are not prepared for your kids to be something other than what you try to make them into, you're not ready for parenthood, in my opinion. So after I got that email from them, I was like, okay, I've been doing the most for the last decade to try and hang on to some semblance of a relationship with them. About that same time, was deciding to come out as non-binary and using they them pronouns. I knew that it would not be a fun conversation if I told them that. So I told my friends, I told social media, I told my doctors, but I didn't tell them. And I was like, this is another indicator that like this relationship is not working. And despite the fact that your parents raised you to believe that your family of origin is the only place where someone is going to truly love you, truly understand you, truly support you, truly be there for you. But if their actions were what supporting and loving me were, that wasn't a definition of love or support that I wanted in my life. So I started talking to my therapist about going no contact, and really, really sat on that for, at least a year. Going back and forth with all of anyone else who's gone non contact or thought about going no contact. You have these intrusive thoughts about, like, I am a bad child, I am being mean or disrespectful, or in my case disobedient, because it's not about respect, it's about obedience. And these negative cognitions about ourselves, because we have been socialized to believe that our family is not something you can ever walk away from. You can walk away from marriages, you can walk away from friendships, you can walk away from jobs. Can't walk away from family because they're blood. You gotta keep them around no matter how awful they are. But thankfully, in recent years, there has been a growing push to understand that no, it's not okay to just let things slide because they're blood related. You should not put up with abuse no matter who it's coming from. It was either March or April, and I was like, ugh, summer is coming up. My parents are snowbirds, so I was like, they're going to be coming back to my state soon. I was like, my birthday is coming up. My mom's birthday is coming up. Mother's Day and Father's Day are coming up. And I got a call, or I think it was a text from my mom. And I just saw the notification pop up on my phone. And it sent me immediately into a panic attack. And I was like, that's not healthy. That's not okay. You shouldn't be talking to people where seeing a notification from them gives you a panic attack. No, especially when so few things give you panic attacks these days. Can't abide that. So I was like, okay, it needs to happen. And I was like, I waffled back and forth. I wrote a letter that I was going to send them that, like, explained why I was going no contact and everything. And I was looking online for, like, suggestions of how to do this, what kind of legal ramifications there may be. Like, do I have to send this no contact thing in order to have the option in the future to, press charges for harassment if they decide to get real bad. Again, I didn't really expect that from them, but I was just trying to prepare for every possible, outcome. Prepare for any kind of fallout. I found an organization in the UK that actually works with people who need to go no contact, helps them through the process. They have, a therapist network that are well versed in this kind of thing. They had some, best practices and suggestions on their website. And they said that in their research, it only makes things worse if you send a goodbye letter, because that tells the person that's receiving it there might still be a conversation to be had. When, the person sending it means the exact opposite. So I was like, okay, we're not going to send the letter. We're gonna set that aside. That was a good, practice to put it on paper and to say it. But we're not gonna send it. So then I just went around and I blocked them in my phone, blocked them on social media, whole 9 yards. I blocked them in all the places where I thought they would actually try to contact me. Around that time, I also moved, and so I just, made sure that my address, my new address, was not anywhere findable if possible. But yeah, I was just like, I need to feel the security of knowing I'm not going to have to talk to them, knowing that I am not going to have to see them. I need to, at least for a while, have that, you know, virtual security blanket. And I I was honestly surprised. And this happened during my second divorce too. I was surprised at the relief that I felt. It was a lot. Um I felt free. And that made me sad, and further cemented that that was the right decision for me. I know it's not, right for everybody. Like, my sister still has an extremely close relationship with them, and I do not begrudge her that. My brother has, he's like low contact, best I can tell. And again, I don't begrudge him that. The way that they were raised was a little bit different from the way that I was raised, and the fact that they are both cis straight individuals that still hold to some form of Christianity, it's a lot easier for them, and there's a lot less differences between them and my parents. So, I appreciate that they are able to have a good relationship with my parents, but that is not something that I can do. For me, it is not the right thing. So it's now been a little over a year of no contact, and when you block somebody on a Samsung device, it doesn't actually block them. It means that if they call you, they go straight to voicemail. And if they text you, it goes to a hidden blocked messages folder. I don't have any idea why it's got to be like that, because I feel like other devices don't always do that. They would actually just block the number. At any rate, about 6 months after I went no contact, I got a voicemail pop up from my mom. And again, sheer panic. And I was like, I can't even listen to this. I can't even listen to this. So I handed my phone to my friend, and she listened to the message while I stepped outside. She came and got me a couple minutes later, and she was like, yeah, I didn't even have to listen to the whole thing. She doesn't understand why you're not talking to them. They're, really sad that you're not talking to them. And it was everything that I thought she was going to say in that voicemail. I mean, and my friend got that from the first, minute and a half of the 4-minute or 5-minute voicemail. So, I mean, I'm sure there was a lot more to her message, but that opening was exactly what I was afraid it was going to be, and exactly why I had my friend listen to it and not me, because it would have put me in a really bad place to listen to her saying those things. I then decided to look at that, blocked messages folder and see if they had been trying to reach out to me via text. Turns out no. They had each sent me a happy birthday message on my birthday, and no other texts. So we're talking about, in 6 months, they reached out to me twice. So they obviously were not really missing me that much, weren't really thinking about me that much, didn't really care that much. And part of me was happy, okay, so they're not gonna try and find me, they're not gonna try and show up at my door and have a face-to-face conversation or anything, they're gonna leave me alone. But also it was really, your child goes no contact with you and you don't care for several months other than that one voicemail? what the hell? Like, how are you not more upset about that? How have you not tried more? But that, you know, it tracks with my history with my parents. Like, they're not interested in who I am as a person, other than to say that it is not what they want me to be. And so therefore I need to make changes to be the person that they want me to be. It was another clarifying moment that said, yeah, family of origin is not everything. The family you choose is, it just hits different. You're not forced to be around those people because of circumstances of birth. They are the people who have shown up for you consistently. They are the people that respect you and share your values. They are people who see you, who will honor your feelings and your beliefs and your thoughts. They may not agree with them, but they honor them. And vice versa. I have, since getting divorced, I spent the first year and a half, no, 2 years. The first 2 years, I lived by myself, just me and my dog, in the apartment that I had had for several years with my ex-wife. Then I moved in with a friend because, the pandemic had been real rough living by myself with just me and my dog, and I needed a person at home. So I was like, let's get a roommate, because I really don't want to be in a serious relationship, and I don't want to share a bedroom. I don't want to share a bed with anybody. I just need somebody in the house, and I want it to be a friend. So moved in with a friend, and then after our lease was up, she really wanted to stay at the place that we were at. I fucking hated it. I couldn't wait to move out. So I moved in with a different friend. And bullshit occurred. She and I fell out, and a different acquaintance of mine moved in. Completely screwed me over financially. Thanks, Mel. Then I was able to move in with a couple of other friends while I tried to secure my situation, because the roommate that seriously fucked me over got us evicted. So I was, trying to figure out what to do, because when you have a recent eviction on your record, nobody wants to rent to you. And the housing market around here was already nuts. So I ended up, some D&D friends that I had a big house, and a bedroom opened up, and they offered it to me, and I was like, fan-fucking-tastic. I have lived here now for about a year and a half, and we've been through ups and downs, but this is the chosen family that has really been there for me. The friends that I stayed with initially after getting evicted, the friends that I have had just stand by me and help me out with this, that, and the other. It was just such a clarifying thing to be experiencing the love and support and care that I was getting from this chosen family, while my blood relations, my parents, I was separating from them for good. It has been a lot to deal with. Going no contact is not easy. There are still periodically times, like, my birthday, my mom's birthday, my dad's birthday, Mother's and Father's Day, stuff like that. Christmas. I miss having family for that. But I also don't miss it because I have chosen family for that. We just have different rituals. Um, we have a Yule feast with my chosen family rather than a Christmas thing where we read through the nativity story and everything on Christmas. But like it is just this betrayal that so many people get to have both their blood family and their chosen family all together, and people like me just get the chosen family. It's hard because I see friends who have amazing relationships with their parents, and I wish that I could have that. It would be really cool to have that because that's the people that you have the longest history with. They're the ones who remember when you were a kid. They're the ones who remember all the stuff that you did. You don't have to tell them the stories. They were there for it. But at the same time, they were also there for the homophobia and the transphobia and the purity culture and the threats of you better act like you're supposed to and be obedient, or that might mean that you're not elect and you're not going to heaven, and here's all of the awful things that will happen to you if you don't go to heaven when you die. It's this really diabolical approach that Christians, evangelicals to this day will do, terrifying children about hell. I got saved when I was 3 years old. And I did so, and I to this day vividly remember that day. It's one of my earliest memories. I was under the covers, waking up in the morning, and I was thinking about what I had heard in church and Sunday school, and I really wanted to be with my family after I died. I wanted to be with God after I died. I did not want to go to hell. I was terrified of being separated from my family and going to hell. And so I accepted Christ, and I ran out to the living room to tell my parents afterwards, and they were, of course, super excited and happy about it. I also know that this happened in the way that I remember it because when I was 5, I wrote a testimony down. And a few years ago, my mom thought it would be helpful to give it to me and tell me that it was a story I wrote, so that way I would read it. And that was shitty. That was shitty. I'm just gonna say it. That not cool. Not cool. The deceit was really gross. But I read it, and rather than what I'm sure my mom wanted me to feel, I felt this just revulsion of how could you terrify a toddler like this to make an eternal decision about religion before they even know how to read or write. All they have is what you have told them, and they're making an eternal decision about this. So, kids who are 5, 8, 10, 15, they can't tell you what their gender is. They can't tell you what their sexuality is. They're too young for that. But they can make an eternal decision in regards to their soul long before that. Make it make sense. But yeah, I read that, and I saw a terrified toddler. And it made me sick to my stomach that my parents were patting themselves on the back for decades that they appropriately terrified me as a toddler. it's so hard to try to get your head around how your parents can do that kind of thing and feel like they love you. Like that is love. The terrifying you as a child. Making you listen to Frank Peretti audiobooks over and over and over when you're growing up on the road. To further terrify you about what happens during rapture, tribulation, etc. before you even get to hell. There was just so much fear that was weaponized in order to push me to make a specific religious declaration and to follow preset rules about who and what I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to do with my life. I was pushed to go to college and get a degree, but only so that way if my husband died, became disabled, or left me, I would have a way to provide for our children. My highest calling was to be a wife and mother. And while I really enjoyed my first marriage, the last couple of years obviously were awful, but out of 11 years, we had a good 8 or 9 that were really awesome. And I was really excited to be a wife in that sense. When I got married the second time, there was a lot of complicating factors, but I felt a lot of pride about, being more obviously queer. Because when you are in a straight presenting relationship and you're not like flamboyantly telling people constantly that you're queer, everyone just assumes that you're straight. But if you're holding hands with your wife and you're a woman, they're like, oh yeah, gay. They can see that from a mile away. And so it was cool to, kind of step forward from bisexual to, straight passing bisexual to very obviously queer of some designation. The first couple years of our marriage, I thought was really good at the time. It absolutely soured and then took me years to extricate myself from, which is why I will never again be getting legally married to anyone. No. We can have the party, but I'm not signing the paperwork. No third time's a charm. Nope. But, I did enjoy being a wife in those contexts. But it was most certainly not my highest calling. Absolutely not. Helping other people, that was my highest calling. And I was able to do that in my career. I was able to work on a number of projects where I was directly helping people, or indirectly helping them by training other people to help them, or working on software or whatever. I got to help people. I got to make their lives easier. I got to help them enjoy life and have time to enjoy it with the people that are important to them. That felt good to me. And as I got older, I was like, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? And after being in therapy for several years, I was like, man, I really want to be a therapist. But my physical and psychological disabilities unfortunately kind of prevent me from doing that, which is why I've been doing peer support work for the last 1.5 to 2 years. The support groups that I run, the DBT and rap groups that I have done, being there for my friends, my chosen family, like that's all been really, really important to me and really, really fulfilling. I am currently working with defeatproject2025.org. Our purpose is to help people. We want people to understand what this, political playbook is and how it will affect people. And we want to ensure that everyone knows what is going on and can understand things, because all too often people look at politics and they go, nope, I'm checked out from it. It's too complex, or it's hidden in legalese, and like it doesn't make any sense, and voting doesn't work, and all these other excuses to not be engaged. We are trying to help people understand what's going on and be able to understand the ways that they can affect change, and hopefully we'll actually get a popular vote one of these days. We've never gotten a truly popular vote. We only ever have like a third of the country voting. So of course things are skewed. We need everybody in on this. So all that to say, as I start June, I have a lot of complicated emotions. I have stuff left over from being told how wrong it is to be LGBTQ. I have stuff left over from how being LGBTQ has separated me from my family. I have the, political part where decent group of politicians are really lobbying hard to make it illegal for me to live the life that I am. It's very heavy and it's a lot of stuff. But at the same time, I want to focus on the queer joy. All of the progress that we have made. The very fact that the things in Project 2025 are plans and not something that's already been in place for decades, like that's progress that we have made. The fact that I was able to marry my ex-wife, that's progress. The fact that we are now having better vocabulary to have people describe who and what they are, that's progress. Having children's programs and opening up to where younger people can be honest with their families about who and what they are, and get support for that. That's progress. And so we have so much queer joy, but it is important for myself and people like me, we need to honor all of those hard feelings that we have as well, that are tied up in all of this, because that is just as valid. Childhood trauma is not something that you get rid of overnight. It is not linear, just like grief, because it involves a lot of grief. I am grieving the relationships that I thought I would have as an adult with my family. I am grieving the way that society treats people like me. I am grieving the childhood that I could have had it not been for the random birth circumstance of being born into a conservative, fundamentalist, evangelical, missionary family. There's so many things that could have gone differently, but they didn't. And so I am where I am, and I am what I am, and I have to honor all of that. So the deconstruction of everything has been a process that I started, in like 2000, 2001. I'm going to say like 2000 to 2002 was the Rumspringa. I didn't actually really start dissecting things until about 2002. So for the last 22 years, I have been working on this. And for the first decade, I was doing it without help. I was just doing self-help. I will say it has been so much easier and so much more fruitful to do it with a good therapist. For anyone else who is dealing with mental health issues, I'm going to have some links down in the description to help you find therapists and support groups in your area. Of course, there is the link to join my Discord, so you can get in on my support groups for former evangelicals and homeschool alumni. Yeah, that is where most of my energy is going to be going this month, is into programs for us to work through in regards to pride. Because I will say my Discord server skews heavily LGBTQ. It's wonderful. I love it. I know that it's not a terribly representative sample of like the whole of the US or anything, but I do love how we all kind of come together and congregate. I have a couple of Discord servers that are heavily LGBTQ, and it's a community that I have not been able to have in person because I live in a city that has Focus on the Family headquarters right here. We have Lauren Boebert fans. We've got a lot of conservatives here that can make it very difficult to have queer things. We are down to, I think, 2 queer bars, one of which isn't actually specifically gay. It's just owned by gay people and very gay friendly. There's really only one that's truly a gay bar, and we had a mass shooting at that gay bar a couple years ago. Yeah, it was 2022, so like a year and a half ago. Not good. So by being able to connect with so many people online, it's been really nice to share stories and sorrows and joys and our wins and our losses. And I highly recommend you join in if you haven't already. So that is my very long, meandering explanation of how I got to where I am. I had tried to write a script for this a couple of times over the last couple of months, and I got even more into the weeds when I was writing it all down. Because every time I would edit, I would add more to it and then add more to it. So, suffice it to say, my upbringing was not great for me. The response that my family had to me coming out, not helpful for me. But I have been able to find community. I've been able to find chosen family. I've been able to find awesome therapists to work with. And I am just better every single year. And I am really looking forward to what I have in the future. I'm going to cut myself off there before I ramble further. I appreciate you if you've stuck it out all the way to this point. Appreciate you so much. Make sure to like the video, comment below, add your thoughts. What has your process been? If you are an ex-evangelical who is part of the LGBTQ, what has that process been like for you? What are your relationships with your family like? Continue the discussion down there. Of course, we can always continue the discussion privately in my Discord server. Again, link down below. And, subscribe to the channel. I will admit that I am putting out a lot less content this year than I did last year. I have been going through a lot of procedures for my disability. And I am often too doped up on painkillers or just in too much pain or whatever, and I'm just not present enough to be able to make content. So I will continue doing what I can, because this is still a great outlet for me. This is still something that I have fun doing. I hope all of you have a wonderful day and a happy Pride.